This is the new 2021 Emonda SL6. Brand new and completely overhauled from the ground up, with the exception of the seat mask cap. Yes, this is the new 2021 Emonda, and the third overhaul the Emonda has seen. Now, without a doubt, this is the biggest change the Emonda has gone through, and in my opinion, this is arguably the best all-around road bike Trek has ever made. Now, over the last week of filming and editing, I've realized there's a ton of content. There's a lot to share about this new Emonda, the Emonda in general, but also the new Emonda SL6 Pro. If I were to put all the content into one video, it would be way too long, so I'm gonna break it up into two videos. This video is gonna be my first impressions and the unboxing and the building of the bike, whereas since I got the bike, I've put it on about 100 kilometers. I'll do like an initial ride impression. So in this video, I'm gonna do unboxing, bike build, showing my wife's toes, go over the frame design, show you the internal cable routing, talk about the geometry and the fit and how that's changed, do a quick drivetrain setup, show the beautiful paint job, and show you some of the finer details that make this bike so good. Well, let's get into it. Let me just remind you that this is not a step-by-step video on how to build your bike. It is the general build process where I'll share a few tips and tricks and a few of the neat things that I find along the way. Things first, as always, we're gonna put some carbon gripper on the seat tube. And then we're gonna torque that seat post down onto the seat tube. Very, very important to use a torque wrench for that. You don't want to crack your seat tube. Here we go. The box. It's not gonna be too much in here, since it's a mechanical drivetrain. Already you can see the new frame design, the lines, sharp lines. Moving on, we will remove the rest of the packaging, leaving on the top tube and down tube packaging, of course, just to protect the frame during the build process. As of course, this is the Emonda SL6 Pro. The difference between this and the regular Emonda SL6 non-Pro model is just the wheels. So they come with the new Bontrager Aeolus Elite wheels. So it's a brand new addition to the family that enters just below the Aeolus Pros. It's hard to say whether these wheels are any better than an aluminum set. They're probably a little bit heavier, if not roughly the same. And for the extra 800 bucks, if it was available, I likely would have gone with the Emonda 6, SL6, and then upgraded the wheels later on to something better. And I just might do that still. While editing this video, I realized that statement about the wheel weight was a bit bold. So I went and looked it up, and sure enough, the equivalent aluminum set, the Paradigm Elites, come in at 1,520 grams, while this wheel set is claimed to weigh 1,685 grams. So the equivalent aluminum wheel set is 160 grams lighter. Much more aero bladed front fork with that cam tail design. Definitely much more aggressive than last model of the Emonda. New head tube design as well, very nice, very sleek. You have that integrated top cap. Interesting little touch there. I'm not exactly sure that was supposed to be like that. The GOGOGO is obviously supposed to be there, but if you look closely, you can see those little lines coming out of each of the GOs. And I think what happened is when they painted that on the frame and turned the bars back, it must have scraped on the frame and left those little speed lines. If anyone else has seen this and those lines are supposed to be there, maybe you could let me know in the comments. I like all the subtleties that Trek puts on their bikes. Oops. Next up, we're going to install the handlebars. This ended up being a bit more of a battle than I had thought. The new internal cable management system that ducts in right in front of the steer tube ends up making the cables and housing quite a bit stiffer and harder to flex. And of course we want to torque those stem bolts down. This tool that you see here is a tool from Bontrager. It's a preset 5 Newton meter torque wrench with a 4mm Allen key. I use it probably more than any other tool in my toolbox. Next up, we'll install the front brake caliper and align it so the brake pads aren't rubbing on the rotor. Look at that, hey? Integrated all the way from here up to the top of the head tube. It's always a good idea to give your rotors a quick clean before they touch those pads for the first time. You can either use rubbing alcohol or a disc brake cleaner. Another quick tip is it's easier to see through the caliper if you have a white background. So in this case, I just use a white piece of paper. Setting up the front caliper isn't difficult, it just takes a little bit of patience. And then of course, once that's set up, we will remove the reflectors. Next, we'll set up the drivetrain. This is not an extensive tutorial, but I will show you some of the key points to take into consideration while setting up a Shimano drivetrain. So first, we're going to remove the tension on all the cables, then pop out the rear wheel, and then set up the front derailleur. So every new Shimano drivetrain has a support bolt, which you can see me removing here. This support bolt helps the front derailleur maintain its rigidity and stiffness under shifting. Now, because this bolt rests against the frame, you need to install a frame protector, which never comes pre-installed from the factory. So if you buy a bike with a Shimano drivetrain, just make sure that's installed. If not, you will have to install it yourself. The easiest way to put the frame protector on is by removing that bolt, as you saw me do. Get a tool that is small enough to fit through that hole, put a little grease on the end of that tool, and then mark the frame. Then once you remove the derailleur, you can see that spot you marked. Then what I do is I mark around that spot with some marker, like a Sharpie. I'll clean the spot that I want to attach the frame protector on with some rubbing alcohol, and then attach the frame protector. Then I will reattach the front derailleur, align the derailleur, apply the cable tension, and adjust the limit screws. Not in that particular order, but those are the steps. If you want a tutorial, there are plenty online. Next, we will remove the rear derailleur, apply a hanger straightening tool, straighten the hanger, then reattach the rear derailleur. The rear derailleur hanger is what attaches the rear derailleur to the frame. It's meant to bend or break in the event of a crash. In hopes of saving the rear derailleur, a straight rear derailleur hanger is imperative for proper shifting. So without any tension on the rear derailleur, we are going to adjust our limit screws. It's your B tension screw. It's your high and your low limit screws. If you're ever wondering which one you need to adjust and you forget which is high and low, low gears are easy gears, that's your low limit screw. But you can also just look at the back of the screw, and if the back of the screw is contacting, that's the one you're going to be adjusting. Simply put, the limit screws are preventing the chain from dropping off either side of the cassette. The high limit screw is preventing it from dropping off the outermost side of the cassette, or the smallest cog. By turning the high limit screw clockwise, you're effectively moving the chain up the cassette. So by turning it clockwise, you'll hear a clicking, and that clicking is a chain trying to jump to the next cog, the next bigger cog. So what you do is turn that limit screw clockwise until you hear that connecting, that ticking, and then you'll back it off about a half turn until there's no ticking. And that's when you know your high limit screw is set properly. So next we'll apply our cable tension, then set our low limit screw. Note, you can set the low limit screw without cable tension, you just physically move the derailleur over, but this is easier done if the chain is not attached. Usually after I set my high limit screw on the rear derailleur, I'll set my outer limits of my front derailleur's limit screws. Then we'll jump to the low limit screw. It's the same idea. As you turn the limit screw clockwise, it's going to want to pull that chain down to the next cog. So the smaller cog beside it, as you turn that limit screw clockwise, it will start clicking. And then once again, you just back it off about half a turn until it's not clicking, and then it's set. So as you can see, I try to physically move the derailleur with my hand. This is just a fail-safe. If there's actually not enough tension on the cable to move the derailleur all the way, you just use your hand to move it, which allows you to check that end point of the limit screw. The dangers with a limit screw that's not set properly is that your derailleur can end up in your spokes. Lastly, we'll cut our cables and cap them, adjust our tensions so that the drivetrain shifts smoothly. And as I mentioned, this is not an extensive drivetrain setup. I hope that the majority of the people watching can take something from it. And if you do wish that I do an extensive drivetrain setup with all the intricate steps, just let me know and maybe I'll make one. Now let's remove that rear dork disc. Note how much easier it is to remove a Shimano cassette than it is a SRAM cassette. The way it should be. Jeez. After we've removed that dork disc, put the cassette back on, we will remove the rest of the packaging, revealing the true beauty of this new paint job. After we've completed the majority of the build process, we're going to set up the bike to our fit specs. If you've never had a professional fitting, that's usually a good idea. For me, I know my seat height is 74 centimeters from the top of the seat to the middle of the BB, 69 centimeter reach from the tip of the saddle to the shift hoods. Generally speaking, depending on the length of the nose of the saddle, and my drop is usually between 6 to 8 centimeters from the top of the seat to the top of the bars.
So I've always ridden 56 centimeter bikes. I don't know, like, this is right at the limit, as far down as it can go, 74 centimeters, that's my seat height, and this is right at the limit on a 56 centimeter. So I know you can get a shorter seat mask cap, but that's very surprising. And super long. Wow. Wow, that's... geometry is way different.
So let me explain a little bit. For one, Trek's size chart on their website, you should never go by. It says that this bike fits anywhere from about 5'8" and a bit to 5'10.9. That's for the 56 centimeter frame. For the 58 centimeter frame, it's 5'11" and above. I'm taller than 5'11", so technically I should be on a 58 centimeter frame. However, all of my fit measurements suggest that I could never fit that frame based on the new frame geometry. It's a longer top tube and it's an H1.5 head tube, so this bike is longer and lower than its predecessor, and I'm not quite sure why they shipped this bike with such a long seat mask cap. Usually the 56 will come with the shorter seat mask cap. Basically, this bike is no longer for the average Joe, and it is now more geared towards race geometry.
I really wish they had put the new design seat mask cap on this one that they have on the Damani and the Emonda. Or sorry, the Madone. Because this thing's a pain. I found these guys in the box of goodies that come with. So basically what this is it's going to sit right here. It's going to raise this cap up a bit and make this look just a little more aero and seamless, which is kind of nice. So it actually matters which one you put on first. This is almost comical. The piece that was on here is one piece, so you can't really even put it back on once you put these spacers in. Luckily over the years I've collected, perhaps we'll cut that down, I'm not sure yet. Push those guys down a little bit.
So the top cap has a 4 Newton meter torque spec, so I'm just using this tool to snug it down, and then I'll use a torque wrench later on to hit that 4 Newton meters. So that pretty much concludes the build process. Now what I'll do is I'll just go through the gears one more time, fill the tires up, tension the spokes. You do this by filling the tires and then pushing down on the rim like so. Then we'll torque every bolt down to its torque spec and check to make sure the rims are true in a wheel truing stand. And that's pretty much it for the build process. So far, I'm extremely happy with the looks of this bike. I have to admit, when I ordered it, I thought it was going to be pretty bland, and for years I found that Trek had subpar paint jobs, but this lithium gray with brushed chrome paint job is absolutely brilliant. Now all that's left for this video is to weigh it. Once again, the bike comes in very similar to what Trek weighed it at, with less than 80 grams between their measurement and mine. Hey, thanks for watching. In the next video, we'll get more into the details and design of the bike, especially compared to the previous Emonda, and I'll even share my first ride impressions. See you in the next one.